Hello, my wonderful third graders. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We are still learning about colonial America. Think way, way back to before spring break and what we were learning. This is lesson 5, the founding of Maryland in Georgia. Have any of you ever been to Maryland or Georgia? Some vocabulary you'll hear in the read aloud. Buffer means something that acts as a shield, often between two things against harm, annoyance, or interference. So you might have to be a buffer between your siblings when they're fighting, like you're trying to keep them from fighting, being a buffer. Confirmed means proved, assured, said that something is definite or definitely going to happen. Debtors are people who owe money or favors to others. Inevitable, it's kind of a fun word to say. Say inevitable. Inevitable means unavoidable, unstoppable. It's going to happen no matter what. It's inevitable. Infamous is having an extremely bad reputation, well known for something bad. So when you're famous, you're usually known for something good, but if you're infamous, that means that you are known for something really bad. Interference means interruption, unexpected stop in a plan or action. Laborious means requiring a lot of hard work, difficult. It has the root word labor, which is work. Toleration is the act of accepting, allowing, or enduring something. It means you tolerate something, toleration. Today you're going to hear about several law-making groups. Remember, that's part of culture. We have laws and government. One you will hear about is called Parliament. Parliament is the law-making group in the government of Great Britain, which is made up of the countries of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Parliament has many members, and the leading member is the British Prime Minister. In today's read aloud, the words assembly and house are used to describe law-making groups in the colonies. You may have already heard about the House of Burgesses, which were the governing group in the colony of Virginia. Remember, keep in mind that the groups in each colony were distinct and separate. They were different from each other, but at the same time, each group was influenced by the rules and laws of Parliament in Great Britain. We were not free, right? We had to follow the laws of Great Britain still, of England. The colonists would consider these laws when they began to make laws for themselves. If certain laws worked for them, they adopted them. With so much trade going on and the abundance of ships laden with valuable cargo, it's inevitable or unavoidable that pirates would make an appearance in this story. Ooh, pirates. The English colonies, particularly particularly those in the southern region in the West Indies, became well known as places where pirates hid from the law. These pirates were known as buccaneers. Buccaneers were a group of men from England, France, and Holland. They terrorized sailors and captured trade ships in this region. Because of the success of these infamous pirates, some countries were forced to send naval ships to the New World to accompany their trade ships safely back to port. This new world was turning out to be a place where all kinds of people had the opportunity to become rich, even infamous pirates. What do you know about pirates? Pirates are people who steal goods from others at sea. Arg. From this context, what do you think infamous means? It means well known as having a bad reputation, known for doing something bad. Back on land, the English colonies were expanding. Today you will learn about two more colonies, Maryland and Georgia. Both of these colonies had an interesting history. However, the development of Maryland and Georgia was a little different from that of Virginia. Let's begin with Maryland. You learned about the large plantations that were prevalent in the South. Maryland was considered a southern colony, though it was geographically in the middle Atlantic region. Although there were many small farms in Maryland, there were a fair number of large plantations in the southern portion. Like Virginia, Maryland's economy was based on tobacco agriculture as a cash crop. So you can see, like, technically Maryland was at the very bottom of the mid-Atlantic, but it was a lot like the southern colonies in that it had plantations and grew tobacco. Before he was killed, Charles I had given a large section of land north of Virginia to a friend. Man, I wish my friends could just give me land. This time, the lucky recipient of land was Sir George Calvert. Sir Calvert was also known as Lord Baltimore. You heard of Baltimore? And received this generous gift in 1632. Sir Calvert was a Roman Catholic. In England at that time, Roman Catholics were not very well liked because they were not part of the official Church of England. The Church of England, the Anglican Church, had split apart from the Roman Catholic Church. Have you heard the word Baltimore before in relation to Maryland? Baltimore is the name of the largest city in the state today. Many people in England at that time believed that Roman Catholics would be more loyal to the Catholic Pope than to the king, and they did not like that. However, because King Charles's wife, Queen Henrietta Maria, was Catholic, Charles tried to be respectful of Catholics for her sake. Delighted by Charles's gift, Sir Calvert named his colony Maryland in honor of Queen Maria. Maryland was different from Virginia because it was controlled by Sir Calvert's family. Sir Calvert's son, Cecil, determined that Maryland would be a safe haven for Catholics. In the beginning, it was. In fact, in 1634, Cecil's brother, Leonard Calvert, led the first group of Catholics to this colony. Leonard Calvert later became the first governor of Maryland. The colonists in Maryland made it a priority to make peace with local Native Americans right away. That's good. They did not waste time searching for gold, but instead immediately established farms and trading posts. These people sound a lot smarter than other people we've heard about. They soon settled into organized communities with laws that were clearly defined. It wasn't long before word got out that Maryland was quite a nice place to live. Europeans searching for a better life, free of poverty and religious persecution, journeyed to this colony. And it wasn't just Roman Catholics who came. Other Christians who belonged to different churches came to settle in Maryland too. When people experience persecution, they are made to suffer because of what they believe in. Before long, Maryland became known as a place that practiced religious freedom, so much so that in 1649, Lord Baltimore had the Maryland General Assembly pass the Act of Toleration. This law stated that all Christians in Maryland would be tolerated or allowed the freedom to worship. This law confirmed that Christians from different churches, Protestants, Catholics, and others, could practice their religion without interference. From this context, what do you think interference means? It means like somebody tries to stop them or keep it from happening. The last southern colony to be founded was Georgia. One day, a member of Parliament in London, England, named James Oglethorpe, had a brainstorm. Oglethorpe had noticed that English jails were overflowing with debtors. In England during this time, people were put in jail called a debtor's prison if they were unable to pay their debts. Sometimes these jailed debtors owed a little amount of money, and sometimes they owed a lot, but they're still put in prison. Oglethorpe had noticed that these debtors, even those who owed a relatively small amount of money, were often left to die in jail without any way of paying back the money they owed. Oglethorpe's unique idea was to set up a new colony in North America where these debtors would be given a second chance. They would be given land so they could begin a new life. They could work to pay back the money they owed, and then their debt would be forgiven. So Parliament is the name of the governing body which still exists in Great Britain today. And debtors are people who owe money to other people. In 1732, the then King George II liked this idea. He gave Oglethorpe a charter saying that he could take a band of debtors from England to the area of land between South Carolina and Spanish Florida. The British Parliament supported this venture by giving Oglethorpe money and ships to make the journey. Upon reaching this new land, Oglethorpe named it Georgia after His Royal Majesty. Kings just expected new lands to be named after them, I guess. Georgia was even larger back then than the state of Georgia is today. It included much of present day Alabama and Mississippi. So that was quite a nice piece of land King George gave to James Oglethorpe. That's a fun name to say, Oglethorpe. However, even though sending debtors to the New World seemed like a brilliant plan to Oglethorpe and the king, it was difficult to persuade many debtors to leave their families and homeland and sail 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to a place where they might not be welcomed with open arms. Once they arrived, the debtors would have to build their own homes as well as gather, hunt, and grow their own food. Many debtors preferred to serve their time in jail in England rather than face the unknown in the New World. Some might say beggars can't be choosers. In all, about 100 debtors agreed to go on the journey to North America. They began the laborious task of helping to turn Georgia into a colony. So the saying, beggars can't be choosers, you'll hear more about that saying, is used to describe those who are not in a position to be picky about things that are given to them. Right? From this context, do you think laborious describes something that is easy or difficult? Do you think it was easy or difficult for them to help start Georgia as a colony? Pretty difficult. Laborious has the word labor in it, which means it was hard work. As soon as he arrived in Georgia, Oglethorpe met with the leader of the Yamacraw, a group of Native Americans in the region. Chief Tomochi and the Yamacraw were willing to trade with the English and to allow them to settle there. Oglethorpe worked hard to establish alliances with the Yamacraw and even invited some of them to visit England. Oglethorpe and his band of debtors developed the first settlement in Georgia, Savannah. Savannah remains a thriving and well-known city in the state of Georgia today. Of course, King George had another motive for sending settlers to Georgia besides helping debtors start a new life. As you can see on the map, Georgia is located between the Carolinas and what was then known as Spanish Florida. At this point, the British had not established any official colonies to the south of South Carolina, so this was the perfect way to protect the colonies from the Spanish. Georgia served as a buffer zone to separate English colonies from the Spanish colonies. This would also allow colonists to keep an eye on Spanish ambitions for growth in North America. So the Spanish probably wanted to take over more land, and the British were like, oh, no, you don't. We're going to take it over and make Georgia. But King George did not realize that the Spanish had already claimed the very area he had in mind. Uh-oh. That's not going to be good. It wasn't long before there was armed confrontations between the Spanish and the British. As time went by, more and more settlers arrived in Georgia. Some of them did not get along with the native people as well as Oglethorpe and his followers had. The Spanish continued to stake their claim to the land, and buccaneers often attacked vital trade ships. This new colony, the last one to be created, suffered its fair share of problems in its early days. Whereas few debtors would agree to come and settle in Georgia, many poor Europeans from other countries began to arrive and establish farms in this colony. They came primarily from Ireland and Germany. Georgian farmers liked the idea of plantation farming, as it had proven successful in other southern colonies. However, the colonists soon found farming to be a back-breaking job and insisted that they needed help. Although it was first decided that Georgia would be a slave-free colony, the introduction of slavery slowly began. Before long, Georgia became a colony identified with plantation life and the heavy use of enslaved laborers. Within 100 years of being established, the state of Georgia had more plantations than any other state in the South, and the second largest number of enslaved Africans, second only to Virginia. What 3 new reasons did you hear about today that helped explain why people left behind their homeland to take a perilous boat ride across the Atlantic? Christians came to Maryland to escape persecution and to be in a safe haven where they could worship freely. Debtors came to Georgia to work to pay back their debts. Poor Europeans came to start a new life. What problem in the colonies seemed to be solved at the time but soon prompted a terrible new problem? Farmers needed help with their plantations, and so they brought enslaved Africans to the colonies. This seemed to solve the need for workers, but it also created the terrible problem of slavery. Before he was killed, to whom did King Charles I give the land that became the Maryland colony? His buddy, Lord Baltimore, also known as Sir Calvert. For whom did Lord Baltimore name the colony of Maryland? Queen Maria. Why did he create the colony? To be a safe haven for Christians to worship freely without persecution. Who had the unique idea to create the colony of Georgia? James Oglethorpe, a member of Parliament. How did Oglethorpe attempt to establish a positive relationship with the Native Americans in this area? He talked with them and their chief about trading and sharing the land. For whom was the colony of Georgia named? King George II of Great Britain. In conclusion, what was Sir Calvert's main idea for Maryland? What was the main thing he wanted to do with Maryland? Religious freedom for Christians is what he wanted. What was James Oglethorpe's main idea for Georgia? To give debtors a chance to pay their debts and start a new life. What was the main idea King George II had for Georgia? It was different than Oglethorpe's. What did he want? Georgia would be a buffer between the English colonies and the Spanish presence below in Florida. Our word for today is inevitable. In the read aloud you heard, with so much trade going on and the abundance of ships laden with valuable cargo, it's inevitable that pirates would make an appearance in this story. Say the word inevitable. Inevitable means unavoidable or unstoppable and describes something that is going to happen whether you like it or not. When Sherman ate his birthday cupcake, it was inevitable that the icing would disappear before the cake. He must like the icing the best. Has something ever happened to you that you felt was inevitable? It was just going to happen if you liked it or not. You heard in the read aloud that the interference of infamous pirates known as buccaneers seemed inevitable or unavoidable during colonial times. Explain why this was the case. Why was it inevitable? There was so much trading going on in the Atlantic Ocean that there were a lot of opportunities for pirates to steal valuable goods. Pirates could hide from naval ships in the large Atlantic Ocean. How would you compare and contrast the actions of these buccaneers and the actions of the English colonists? How are they similar? How are they different? So, a phrase that we heard today was beggars can't be choosers. So, proverbs are short traditional sayings that have been passed along orally. People are saying them out loud from generation to generation. These sayings usually express general truths based on experiences and observations for everyday life. Sometimes they don't have literal meanings, meaning that they don't mean exactly what they say. They have a richer meaning beyond the literal, a figurative meaning. So we're not saying an actual beggar is choosing something. when we're doing the figurative meaning. The literal meaning would be that a person who is in a position of not having something does not have the option of choosing what he or she wants. If you're begging, then you really shouldn't be saying no to something, right? If you're begging for a sweet treat from your teacher and your teacher gives you a sucker and you wanted a candy bar, you could say beggars can't be choosers because you either take it or you're not getting anything. You have to take what is offered. Just like a beggar, somebody who's begging for food or something, takes what they are offered and isn't too picky. So the debtors you heard about in the read aloud who were in prison didn't have anything. Some of the debtors didn't want to take the opportunity that was being given to them and go to the New World because of the distance, risk, change, or other reasons. Some would say in response, beggars can't be choosers. Take what you are given. This is an opportunity to get out of jail. All right. I will let you decide if you want to fill out this form for Maryland or Georgia today, but you're going to do this on your teacher made worksheet. What region is it? Georgia's the southern region. Maryland was the mid-Atlantic region technically, but it was more like the southern region. Who were our key people? Why did they go there? Motivations are very important for these two colonies. Fill in as much information on this as you can, and we will talk about it during our afternoon wrap-up.